It's back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back once again. It is the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com airwaves. We're welcoming the whole game. Eddie just back from the airport, actually.
Just back.
Appreciate you just running down for the pod.
No problem. I was able to go home real quick, so I kind of got in. We got here early, so it wasn't too bad.
We've been at the 5-star. Well, Bob hasn't, but the rest of us have been at the 5-star challenge in Atlanta. I was actually there for the convention. Then I had to race back home. So Eddie and Josh have been there the last 2 days with Media Day and then the 5-star challenge yesterday. First off, I guess we should get travel grievances out of the way first.
I don't think I didn't really have any problems. It was another successful airport trip where I didn't have to.
There's got to be a lot of people
to put up with anything, really.
There's got to be a lot of people listening to our podcast that travel on a pretty frequent basis.
Now that I've met
several people in the airport.
Yeah, I just completely forgot about that. I went out with leaving Oklahoma City to fly to Houston. That was my connecting flight on Sunday afternoon. Ran into a loyal podcast listener and his wife and his family. So
I'll give a shout out.
They were nice folks.
I'll give a shout out to Lance Wheeler, who I met in the St. Louis airport during my 3-hour delay. I mean, literally, I'm not kidding. Weather 3-hour delay.
Yeah, that Sunday night was.
You've got the grievances.
So Lance came up, and it is really weird, guys. Like, we all get this now. I think we're more famous for the pod than we are for anything else. It's like people. That's the first thing they say is, I love the podcast. Like,
there's a lot of listeners.
And Lance is like a long-time scooper, too. So, but he told me that he lets his young son listen in the car under one condition, that he won't tell mom.
It's perfect. That's the way we want it. It's Guys Club.
I said, I'm sorry. And he was like, fine. He's like, you don't have to apologize to me. He's like, it's fine. It's like, the only thing I'll say is that my son looks up toward Eddie like as a hero, and he wants to be Eddie.
Beautiful. Oh no, that's exactly what he needs to be doing.
And then I said, Lance, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. And you could tell he wasn't like he was. It was like an admission of guilt. Like it was almost like, yes, I committed the murder.
I completely.
He had that look of just on his face. That look of I failed as a father.
The guy that I sat next to, he told me that. Basically, I basically apologized to his wife. I told her that I'd clean up my language, and she said, sometimes I just can't listen. And I said, well, my mom doesn't either. So it must be a motherly thing.
I think we need. Yeah, it is very much a mother thing. I think maybe we just need to save it up, like make them count. Because you'll try and just bury an F-bomb somewhat when you know I'm not paying attention.
This is going to be a high school recruiting podcast only, so. We'll keep the language to a minimum.
We want the Vandagriffs to be able to listen today.
I think they will.
I will say this. I was very proud. Lincoln Riley actually liked a Sooner Scoop tweet, which he doesn't like outside media stuff. It's not national very often.
This is true.
Which one was it?
Which one?
It was the Vandagriff and the pictures of Josh's and him winning the 7-on-7.
Yeah. And he was the only quarterback, which made it that much more.
Because his Ohio State commitment teammate had shoulder issues, I guess, right?
I've got to hope, because if not, I kind of always thought OU might get involved with that guy. Watching him for a day, I was like, I kind of get why they didn't. So maybe he had some shoulder issues, and that explains it. But I think his team was much better off with Brock taking every snap.
And, from just following it sounded like he did kind of get off to a slow start, and then just kind of, and as it was told to us, like, he doesn't play 7-on-7. He doesn't do this stuff.
I spoke to his father after the camp yesterday, and, and he's a very honest, he's a coach. Like, he can see it for what it is, and Brock was bad in that first game. I mean, there's no other way to put it. His first 5 throws, the best one ended up an interception. I mean, that's a fact. And then all of a sudden, that last drive, the game was over. There was no way they could come back. And he just starts throwing darts. I mean, all of a sudden, it was like it all came together. He figured it out. He figured out the receivers he wanted to go to, and from there they never lost again, and then came back and beat that team that beat them in the first round. So they were real shaky. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and Eddie was there too, you could hear his teammates. This was Rob Cassidy's team, so it's full of South Florida guys who
they were the most energetic group.
Yeah, they're doing backflips. They're all over the place, and Brock's just captain even keel, like just nothing. But like, there's guys on the defense who are like, put me in and play quarterback. This is a joke, man. We can't have this. Like they were. I mean, and they're like 4 feet away from the kid. They did not care, but he got it together, and I mean, his receiver ended up winning position MVP. I was a little surprised that Brock didn't win quarterback MVP, but, I think he was better at his best than anybody there, but at the same time, his lows were lower than Harrison Bailey's.
Okay, I'm glad that I wasn't just being an over huge homer, because I got the camera back out like at the very end after the 7-on-7 stuff. No, I thought that there was probably a chance, like after the 7-on-7 stuff, that I kind of figured that Vandagriff was going to be the MVP for the quarterback. So I wanted to get him going up to the stage or whatever, and they obviously went the other way. But Vandagriff in those last couple games, in the semifinals and then the finals, I mean, we'll have the highlights up probably this afternoon, I would say within the next couple hours. He is unbelievable. I mean, some of the throws that he makes are just like, it's hard to imagine him just going into his junior season. The way that he carries himself, and Josh, you're right. It's like he was with the wildest, most rambunctious group of guys, and they're going crazy. They're all doing backflips after the 7-on-7.
That's always fun.
Like just the most ridiculous athletes that you've seen. And he's just kind of like
flip full twist. I saw.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, and it's just like they're not even trying either. And he just kind of like, yeah, all right, whatever.
No, a linebacker that's committed to Florida, I saw him do a double. Like, he did a double with like a twist in the air. And I'm like, holy crap. These guys could be like gymnasts at Oklahoma. It's not just like, oh, they do a little something. They're all over the place with this crap. Now, I want to, Eddie, I heard a rumor that before they announced the quarterback MVP, Harrison Bailey had already taken off his shirt, like he didn't think he was going to win the thing.
If that happened, I didn't notice it.
I watched
I was standing in the back.
I watched the live stream, and they had, I don't know who was filming it, but they were up at the front. And he did have to grab his shirt. Like they had to tell him, "Hey, get your shirt.
Put it back on."
Okay,
but that wasn't uncommon. That wasn't uncommon. Most people had to put their shirts back on.
And Harrison Bailey, Harrison Bailey's a good quarterback. He can,
absolutely,
he can throw it.
Oh, and he's got a reputation as a big time 7-on-7 guy. So this was right down his alley.
And I thought, from what I saw, I mean, you guys tell me if I just sat in front of my computer yesterday and watched. I might as well have been there. All the live streams, the periscopes and all that. But it seemed to me, Josh, like the biggest moment of the day for Bryce Young was probably the skills competition, because he won that. And then it just seemed like everything after that was all Vandagriff as far as just positive impressions.
And I would think that the only reason that Young won that was because he hit the 2 targets on that first round or first level, I guess.
And, I'm the one that's put out that video, just straight to Twitter of that event of Brock going. And I thought at least twice that he'd gone in. And then it looked like it was so close it would just bounce out. And that was the case for a couple of guys. So it's not like it was just Brock. But that thing was really hard to hit. And as soon as Bryce hit it, that competition was over. Like there was just because he was getting points no one else got. And Bryce is an accurate guy. It was just going to work out.
Yeah.
But, the funny thing was I saw some people like, well, on the arm challenge, Harrison only threw it like 51 or not Harrison, Brock only threw it like 51 or something. He had a bad throw. Like, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it, but like, I'm watching that guy, and Eddie can attest. You watch him throw the ball. There was nobody at that camp that had a better arm than he did. Like, that ball comes out of his hand and it's on a rope.
I think some of the cooler video that we'll be able to put up is some of the 7-on-7 stuff just from behind him. And I think you retweeted something from one of the Rivals guys that put it out.
Brian Moore.
Yeah, somebody. And you can just tell, like, the velocity that it comes off of his hand and the almost kind of the ease that it doesn't look like he's throwing the ball hard and then all of a sudden it just zooms out.
You know, in baseball they call it a live fastball. When it just like when you're standing at the plate, it literally the ball gets smaller as it comes to you. Like that, he has a live arm. Like the ball. He's got the same motion as everybody else, but that ball just has some extra juice when it comes off his fingertips.
Am I am I just making this up, Josh, or is he a pretty damn good baseball player, Vandagriff?
I don't.
Have you ever heard that?
Of any, but no, I don't know. But now
maybe I'm just making that up then.
He's got all that. Like he looks like a baseball player. I would totally believe it, but I don't know of that. The thing I'll say, he made 2 throws yesterday that like. I literally could have seen nothing else from him, and I'd have been like, he's a beast. I mean, like there was one up the middle, and I've talked about it a lot. It was just down the seam, and he drops it. I mean, like, and I say drops it. It sounded like there was a bunch of air. I mean, it was just a seed right down the middle, and just over Justin Flowe's hands and right in front of the safety. I don't think anybody else there would have even tried to make the throw. And he drops it in there. Receiver catches it easy. They go down. They end up scoring on the drive. A little later, though, he hit one that was literally, it looks like one of those like shitty football movies where the quarterback makes the throw and he's falling down and there's no way the ball could fit through that space. And Rob Cassidy and I are sitting there looking at it. We're like, there's no way he made that throw because it was in front of the corner. The safety's coming in from inside. The linebacker's dropping. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It looked like a baseball couldn't have fit through this window. And he finds that Rosemi kid from St. Thomas Aquinas that was the receiver MVP. And like I said, that was kind of like the Baker Mayfield throws against TCU that I like. It's what I remember when I think of Baker. I don't know. I'm going to go see Brock this year in the season. I'm going to go see him next year during the season. I'll see him at camps. If he makes a better throw than that, I'll be stunned. I can't put it to words how impressive it was.
Well, I think the other thing that's impressive is that's the first time he's been with that level of competition. And he seemed to not, he didn't fall below anybody. He seemed to raise his own level a little bit because he's not playing, none of these quarterbacks are playing with guys like that in high school.
Oh, no, especially not him. Yeah. I mean, he plays like some private schools. Yeah, like, so there's not a lot of that where he, as to where like Harrison Bailey's at Marietta, where they've got all kinds of dudes and there's a bunch of good athletes out there and that kind of stuff. It's Brock and a bunch of guys that the 4 of us grew up with.
I saw
a bunch of good high school players.
I saw the heavily graded commitment video in his team. That wasn't exactly a bunch of world beaters.
Yeah, no, there weren't a lot of guys. It wasn't about run after the catch. So,
okay, let me translate what they're trying to say. A bunch of white rich kids, probably. I mean, Prince Avenue Christian. Let's be honest, or Prince Christian Avenue, whatever the hell they call it.
Yeah. Eddie, during the Greg Vandagriff interview, I don't know if it was obvious, and I know we haven't run this for everybody, but you're going to hear this podcast, and then we'll run this interview later in the week, and you can laugh at me. I couldn't remember the name of the school, so I just skipped it. I was like, Prince Avenue. I'm going to mess it up. I'm not going to say it. So I just went right past it since for those that don't know, we talked to his dad during check-in, and it was a really great interview kind of talking about the, being dad, being coach, how you balance that, how he kind of engaged with Lincoln Riley through those 2 roles. And that, it was a good interview. I think people will like it.
Yeah, I really enjoy talking to his dad. And obviously, I think we'll have Bryce Foster, Chad Simmons, talking about Vandagriff. Chad, obviously, the guy that has been kind of the go-to guy on everything Brock Vandagriff, and probably will be for the next 2 years. And then Jacobe Covington as well. Those interviews are yet to run, but we will get those up probably, I would imagine, today.
I just want to say, Bryce Foster, there's never been a guy like I'm not here to root for OU to sign anyone, but I really wanted him to come to OU because he just looks like a maniac. He looks like Ben Powers 2.0 to me.
He has a lot of Ben Powers to him. He won the bench press. Yeah. What was it? I think it was like
26,
25. Yeah. Kid going into his junior year of high school.
Yeah,
I mean that's insane. He is just a bowling ball of a person, though. I don't even know if bowling balls are right. I mean, he's bigger than that.
Everything's big about that guy.
He's a huge, massive kid.
Plus, I think it takes some of the pressure off of me because A lot of people are making Josh McCuistion comparisons.
They are.
Which is, I saw that, and I guess I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I mean, I'm like, okay, I've got facial hair. I've got a big head. Bryce and I both have big heads. I'll totally own that one.
You were big-headed white guys, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know about it other than that.
I will say, though, we're going to have to do a little bit of editing in his interview because he said he's coming up to watch Oklahoma play Army this next season.
Army?
Army not coming
He's
to Norman
watching
anytime
a video
soon.
from last year, all right?
Not coming anytime soon.
Yeah, I was not skilled enough to play that cool. Like, I look at Eddie and I'm like, wait, are they
I
playing?
was like,
What?
nah, they're playing in New York City in 2020 or at West Point.
I was like, I don't remember that being a 2-for-1 deal.
No. It was, I'd say overall, though, Josh, I mean, it was, we've been to what, 6 of these now? 7 of these? That was from just
2012 was the first one.
from top to bottom. That group was, I don't know if there's, I don't know if there's like a Joe Mixon in that group or if there's just like the top tier level talent. But I mean, when you have a guy like Kelee Ringo running a 4.363
that was ridiculous.
or whatever, and basically doing it after falling out of bed, I mean, he is an absolute freak. That I thought that linebacker group was incredible between Flowe and who was on that team with him? It was
Noah Sewell,
yes,
and Philip Webb,
yeah,
all
Philip
on the same
Webb,
team.
just ridiculous.
So I got it, and everybody's heard me tell Flowe stories, but my favorite one I saw this week. So we're there, and it's the first snap of the game against Vandagriff's team. So I'm watching him, and Flowe walks up to the running back. He's like, "I'm about to kick your ass." And he says it in 7-on-7, and you're like, "Oh my, this guy is wired."
He was last year.
So he and Sewell. Literally, the running back shoots out he's going to go out in the flat and be like a safety blanket for Brock. Sewell and Flowe run him out of bounds. Like literally, they don't even follow anything else in the play. They just track this poor running back. And one of the teammates comes up and is like, "What just happened, man?" He's like, "I don't know, but I was scared."
I was scared. I was scared for him.
Well, and I mean, Flowe's got a reputation after last year after taking out Zach Evans.
Eddie, I don't know about you. I thought he walked a better line this year. He was
did.
A little more, don't get me wrong. He was intense and he was getting after it, but he was more like having fun with it. It wasn't,
he was smiling. Which
Yeah.
I didn't know if the kid could do that, and he was dancing and stuff.
He loves inflicting pain. This is fun for him.
I mean, I don't care if he's short or whatever people say, but I mean, that guy is going to be an animal.
Hey, Josh, I know Rivals put up the video, but it's the cat and mouse, and Justin Flowe requested to go against somebody and just destroyed him. Do you have any clue who that was?
Was it the only guy that I could think he would call out just out of pure interest would have been Bijan, because he knows Bijan. Bijan wears it's almost like a top knot in the back of his hair. So if I haven't seen the video you're talking about, but if the dude was like that, then it could have been, because they know each other a little bit. I want to say the scary reality that came out of this, out of Combine or the check-in day for me, it sounds like Justin Flowe is going to go to Clemson.
Whoa.
That class is just stupid. Brazee, Flowe,
that guy, I mean, if he can just buy into moving inside, which the defensive line coach basically spent the entire one-on-one session telling him you need to move inside because that's where you're going to play for the rest of your life. That guy is going to be an animal. And
the second he moved inside,
oh my God.
Was the only guy he went against Foster.
Yes.
He got Foster.
Oh my God. That punch, that literally would have killed me. It would have killed me.
I mean, he hit Foster in the chest hard enough. Foster went back. And Bryce Foster's doing 225 26 times. That's a sturdy dude.
I think Rivals put up that video too.
Yeah, it was no joke.
It's impressive.
Now, out at defensive end, he didn't do anything. He didn't look special. We were like, what's he doing as a 5-star? As soon as he slid inside, as a 3-tech, game over.
What's crazy is he flipped over and was playing a little bit of tight end during the 7-on-7 portion. I mean, that just shows you what kind of athlete he is. He moves extremely well.
Well, and he had the look of kind of like, we all know it. There are people, whether they're kids, whether they're adults, you see them, you're like, you're kind of a shithead. You look kind of like a shithead to me. I don't think I'm going to like you. And he kind of gave me that. But watching him yesterday, that dude went and helped the team at tight end because the other tight end got hurt and didn't want to play. He just went out to help him out. Then while he's doing that, he's also doing the big man challenge tug of war thing with his red team. And he's real into the competition. Like he's having a blast. His team won. Like it was a whole thing. And like, I was like, I like you more than I thought I did. Like I kind of thought you were a diva, but no, he's a good dude. Just likes playing football. So.
Yeah. If he was a baseball player, he'd be a dirtbag. Yeah. Basically.
Exactly.
Now, DBs, let's hit there a little bit. And really, I mean, it was what's interesting, or kind of what I've taken out of this initially after yesterday is all the OU guys that are prospects from 2021 all seem to look pretty good. What's kind of stood out to you about 2020 guys that were there?
I think definitely Bryson Washington. I thought he had a really good day. You know, he tweeted out something when I think Sam Spiegelman tweeted out that he'd run a 4.55, and he was like, I tripped or something. I'm like, dude, that's not your coach handheld 4.55. That's an electric measuring you every 10 yards. That's a great 40 time for a 200-pound safety. Like to me. If he'd have run 4.62, I'd have been like, that's fine. That's no problem at all. When he ran 4.55, I was like, that dude can go. And he looked great. I mean, I sent out a video of him breaking up a pass from Vandagriff in that very first game. His team was the one that played Vandagriff's in the finals. He was there. I don't know if you want to say starting safety, whatever you want to say. He was out there. He was communicating. Like I liked a lot of what I saw of Bryson Washington. I think there's a lot of physical tools there, but I also like how he handles himself. Like he has some leadership qualities that I think Oklahoma will like if they can find a way to land him.
Yeah, he was the guy, and I can't say that I know everything that goes into the strategy of 7-on-7, but he was the guy that was getting his group together, you know, kind of emphasizing that they need to talk more, they need to communicate more, and that's just guys that basically they're thrown together with, over the course of the day to play a 7-on-7. So I definitely can see what you're talking about. We'll have a little bit of video of that as well.
Now Josh Eaton is the other one, the other primary in 2020. He played a lot of receiver. Really, it was only when his team got in a tight situation where he would move and play some corner just to help out. But I think they were low on numbers on offense. We had, what would you say, Eddie? About 15 guys that after they came out from that kind of late lunch, early dinner, that were like, oh yeah, my ankle hurts. Oh, I'm good. Like nobody was that interested in 7-on-7. I think they wanted to do 1-on-1 against the guys and see where they were. But after that was over, I think a lot of them were like, I'm good. I'm set here. But no, I thought Eaton, he's what you think he is. He's long, he's athletic. When guys tried to turn and go vertical with him, he's more than capable of handling that. It's not hard to see why Oklahoma and A&M and a few others really, really covet him right now.
Absolutely. Just real quick, I guess we can just jump right back to offensive line real quick. But, I mean, the guy that won the MVP was A.J. Parks, and that's kind of, for me, I would say it was, from an Oklahoma standpoint, probably a top 3 story out of Atlanta was kind of his emergence in the offensive line.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he and Anton Harrison both. I mean, I had, and a lot of credit goes, again, to our national guys. I try to make a point of this so everybody realizes. Adam Friedman, I wasn't planning to interview either one of those guys. And Adam Friedman, our Mid-Atlantic guy, brings him over. It's like, you need to talk to this guy. Oh, he's got OU in his top group, top 2, whatever. And he's wanting to take an official visit. He loves Bedenbaugh, all this stuff. And so I get to talking to Parks, and I knew the name, but I didn't know much about him. And I get to look, and I'm like, he's the number 67 guy in the country. And he's talking like, if OU just kind of gives me a longer look, I'm in, I'm interested, and you're like, wow, it's just amazing where Bill Bedenbaugh has taken offensive line recruiting. And we'll get into some of that in a little bit, I'm sure. But,
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. With Parks, I mean, I think with both Parks and Harrison, you're looking at guys who are, they may get caught up in the numbers game a little bit, kind of depending on how some things play out. But if not, I mean, Oklahoma is in very good shape with both of those guys. Could land either one of them, maybe even both, if that's what, numbers say is available. And are guys that nobody's even really talking about with OU right now. So just, like I said, I thought they were both big stories. I thought Parks was really good. I can see what OU, and especially Bedenbaugh, likes in Parks, because like we've talked about for so long, he loves guys that, I could try him at tackle, I could try him at guard. He even played some center yesterday. I mean, he did a little bit of everything, and, I think it's pretty clear Bill Bedenbaugh likes those guys that have that kind of versatility.
Yeah, and if anything, I think that you can definitely take out of this weekend was kind of what Marcus Dumerville told us, in the fact that there's starting to become I guess, not an aura, but like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's
almost like a QB1 for the offensive line.
Yeah, well, or like I don't even know what
I'm. Is it about Bedenbaugh? Or are you trying to say
like
Bedenbaugh?
Offensive line?
Yeah.
Just like he's becoming the O-line whisperer or something.
Right.
Yeah.
He's becoming the guy if you really want to kind of what I think Oklahoma fans would say they've known for, I guess the last couple of years, but more nationally is the fact that if you want to be a really good offensive lineman, Oklahoma's automatically in that.
Kind of like if you want to be the best linebacker, you go to Alabama.
Right. Or quarterback.
But you say nationally that you're starting to feel that.
You're starting to feel that more and more with offensive line guys. Yeah. You talk to them, and Oklahoma's one of the first names that comes up. And I guess that's probably obvious because of what they were able to do in this most recent draft and getting 4 guys drafted.
All right, Josh, I know, on the Crimson Corner, you had the live thread going yesterday, and you mentioned that Dumerville, the offensive lineman you were talking about, wasn't exactly just out, a standout. What did you kind of think of his day at the 5-star?
Some of the times, and I should really make more note of this when I kind of write these things, I think sometimes I'm almost a victim of almost what I expect a kid to be versus what they are. And sometimes I get excited because a guy's more than I thought he was going to be. And then with Dumerville, like, he's a guy I love on tape. Like, I really think he has a lot of potential.
And he plays a high level of high school football, too.
Absolutely. At St. Thomas Aquinas. I mean, they're just, you go Michael Irvin, you run down the list. They've got a lot of ex-NFL guys from that program. And and obviously, guys like Jaden Davis. I mean, Oklahoma's got some connection with the program right now. So I really thought that he would come in and be one of those guys that I thought maybe more of the rivals guys would be like, oh, he's better than we thought he was, that kind of thing. And I think in the end, he was probably a little worse than I thought he was. And it's not from a talent standpoint, because Eddie can tell you he is 6'6". He is long armed, long legged. He can move his feet. Like, he's got a lot of just the basic things you need, but I was very surprised to see a guy from St. Thomas Aquinas that was that raw. Like, if he would meet a defensive end at the corner and they countered back inside, he had no understanding of how to deal with it. Like, there was no, if they could get around his first stop, he didn't have any way to counter. So I like I said, I still think he's a very talented guy. I still think if Oklahoma can find a way to take 5 offensive linemen, he's a guy they should push for. But I get it a little bit more now why there's not quite as much certainty that, he has to be a take.
I remember we were talking about that right after the OLDL one-on-one stuff, is just the fact that he is pretty raw, but like you said, Josh, everything that he has half the battle won, and that is his God-given size and ability to move at that size. So, I mean, the tools are there. It's just about kind of using them more.
No, I think that's exactly it. I mean, and you see this all the time, especially with big guys, and that's why I think offensive line, other than quarterback, is one of the toughest positions to evaluate, because you never know how guys are going to react once competition becomes more solid. I mean, there's probably only a handful of times he has faced that many guys of that caliber. And that's even considering he plays in Florida at a mega program that plays all types of big, great, teams from all over the country. He's still, it's hard for offensive linemen or defensive linemen to face guys of similar skill sets because it's very hard to find guys that are that big. That's why linemen are so valued, because there's only so many of them.
I'd even say that I was a little surprised. He maybe still has a little bit maturing to do physically. And I'm not saying that he looks like a baby or anything, but some guys you see out there, and it's
he's
like,
not cut,
that's a man right there. He has made the turn, and I think that Dumerville's probably on the other side of that right now. As far as
like, you think if
5 years from now, that guy's going to be a.
If Bryce Foster got his body weight down to 3%, it'd be nothing but muscle showing probably. I mean. Whereas Dumerville looks like the kind of guy, if he got that down, he would probably lose 40 pounds because he just doesn't have a ton of muscle built up.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Dumerville he looks like a power forward right now. He's got a little belly on him, but his legs aren't particularly huge. His arms aren't real, And again, I was talking to Eddie about that, and we were talking about it kind of from the point of view of how raw he is as a player, but it's also true in strength and conditioning. We're so close to Texas that it skews us sometimes. We think everybody is like Allen or North Shore or all these mega programs that have legitimate dedicated strength and conditioning coaches that all they do is work those kids out in the off season and during their down times. St. Thomas Aquinas, I don't know that they have a thing like that, because Florida, it's just not the same thing. The coaching, even at a place like STA, it's not as college-like as a lot of the Texas, and even the Jinx and Unions and Broken Arrows of the world.
So, Josh, coming out of this, who's maybe one guy you feel better about, and maybe one guy that you're not as sold on in terms of where the Sooners stand?
I don't think there's any question. Bryson Washington, I feel really good about where OU is, just talking to him. And I know some people saw the interview and, mentioned his mom, saying hook 'em and all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that can trick you sometimes. I'm not going to say too much, but I feel good about where OU is there. I think they've done a lot of work. He's got a really good relationship with Alex Grinch. I think really Washington's a guy you'll look back on and say, if this happens the way Josh thinks it will, I think it's Grinch's first big win in recruiting. Now, I will also say it ain't over. I don't care if he picks Texas. I don't care if he picks Oklahoma. I don't think anyone should feel 100% about Bryson Washington until he signs. He is. You can tell, I think Oklahoma's in front. I think you can kind of get that from certain things he says and does. But at the same time, he was very open about, I'm not going to shut the door on either team, no matter what I do on the 4th of July.
Which is go ahead. It's kind of interesting just in that I think that there's a lot of people out there and, and kind of loosely, I guess we could at some point talk about the Mike Gundy situation in Stillwater and pulling offers. But I think there's some people out there that would say if he's not committed to you, why would you take that commitment? And I think on the other side of that is kind of what you said, in that this would be a major win for Alex Grinch and being able to build on top of something like that.
I'm going to go back and look at it and try to do some research. But the last time OU won a major defensive battle in Houston against Texas, that's been a while. Mm-hmm. That has, because for so long, really, and so much of it was built off of Vince Young. So long ago, Vince Young is such a folklore hero in Houston that guys in Houston just, didn't matter the situation, didn't matter why. They just went to Texas. They just followed him right on to Texas. He was like the Pied Piper. But now for Oklahoma to be able to do this for a kid that, everybody thought was a dead set lock to Texas, a couple of months ago, and myself included, I'm not raining on anybody there. For Oklahoma to have done this and really, he's been to Texas twice in the last month. He's been to Texas twice since he went to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is still, in my question, is probably a heavy favorite to get his commitment on 4th of July.
And what we've said before is you'd rather have them and then lose them down the road because you can build up so much momentum as opposed to never getting them, never having that win, never letting those kids see OU's a player once again come defensive kids.
Now, Bob, I also wanted to say I didn't fully answer your question earlier. You asked, maybe a guy that I didn't feel as good about. I don't know that I ever felt good about him, but I think we can finally close the door on Bryce Young in Oklahoma. I don't think that's I like just talking to some people. I got the impression that if he was going to walk away from from USC, it would be Alabama. I didn't get the feeling at all that Oklahoma was even in play right now with him. So that makes things real interesting. I mean, at what point do we start to entertain the idea that maybe they're not going to recruit a quarterback in this class?
No, I think that it's a tough spot. It's a tough sell for anybody, considering that you got Spencer Rattler already on campus, and that 19 class was to come in 21 with Vandagriff. I would have to. I mean, and obviously Lincoln Riley's probably as good as anybody being able to sell something, but I mean, that is just a tough ask, telling a kid, come in and be between these two guys when there's really, like, Vandagriff, you can sell the idea, even if you do sit your freshman year, you're still going to have an opportunity to play, 2 or 3 years probably at the end of the day.
There might be one quarterback in the entire country that would come in that situation. And right now he's playing for the Cleveland Browns.
Playing for the Browns.
No, that's probably true.
No, you know what this feels like is Clemson 2017, 2018. Hunter Johnson was supposed to be really good, but you knew when Trevor Lawrence got to campus, Hunter Johnson was gone. So maybe you realize it doesn't matter who you get if Rattler and Vandagriff are as good as they're supposed to be. That 2020 guy is going to leave.
Bob, some of us knew that Hunter Johnson was in trouble. Some of us doubted Trevor Lawrence.
See, this is something I've been meaning to bring up since the beginning of the podcast, which this is only good news for OU fans, is that in his first extended national 7-on-7 tournament, Brock Vandagriff stood up and was a star and did not wilt the way that Trevor Lawrence often did in national competitions. So that only means that Brock Vandagriff is going to be twice the quarterback Trevor Lawrence is.
You heard it here first.
So what he's saying is that when Vandagriff arrives, he needs to throw a pick to, or at least toward, Brendan Radley Hiles, just to set up the whole connection.
There you go. Well, just in the Army game.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can't. I don't think Buki's eligibility is going to allow him to return to the Army game. But maybe their first spring practice together. See, will that work? Would Buki? Yeah, Buki'd be a senior. He'd be going into his senior year.
He'll be in the NFL at that point.
Well, that's true. I mean,
not even the rednecks believe that, Bob. I'm telling you.
No, the rednecks have already sold him down the river. He can't possibly ever be a good player again because.
Well, that's why you don't. That's why you don't believe in stars. That's why you don't believe in the recruiting rankings.
That's why we don't trust.
Well, I mean, clearly,
exactly.
If a defense is bad, it can't have any good parts. Sign Jordan Evans, Tony Jefferson. All these guys having success in the NFL that played on bad defenses.
Man, they've been replaying a lot of OU games lately on Fox Sports Southwest. It's so sad where OU's defense is and where they used to. I mean, even the 2010 defense, like when Travis Lewis was a kid and Austin Box was out there, and I mean Tony Jefferson, and I mean even the corners like Jamel Fleming and Montre Hurst. I mean, like those guys were superstars compared to what they're throwing out there now.
You just said it, Josh. I mean, what's the most common theme between all those guys? They all had more than a cup of coffee in the league.
Yep. I mean, obviously, other than Austin, but I think Austin would have been in that conversation.
I wish. I know. Not trying to call anybody out or unveil anything, but I know Austin Box's family's still heavily involved with Sooner Scoop. But golly, it just. I think we all, like Josh, you and I, that was kind of the height where we were both really out on the road a lot, seeing guys firsthand. Like, man, he was so good. He had so much potential.
Austin is still probably my favorite video I ever got. And this was back with this was not an HD camera I was shooting with. It was bad. But
it's probably the one that Krabby bought at Best Buy with his reward zone points.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it was. It was that little handheld that everybody has on their honeymoon, that little bitty one with a little bitty flip screen. So he, but Austin's playing free safety. They're at Ponca City, who's terrible, but Austin comes across and the ball's thrown up. He literally, and he's right in front of him. You couldn't draw this shot up any better.
Is this the David Glidden hit? Was that who it was?
No. He jumps up, he grabs the ball, literally sticks 1 foot down, and then falls out of bounds with the interception. But he high points it. Yeah. His foot comes down. It's a perfect highlight.
And did he only have one arm at that point? Was that when he was playing with the bad wing?
No, he was good at that. That wasn't until playoffs when Enid just ran him to death and damn near killed him that year.
I will never forget. I think I would have been a freshman at OU, but I remember watching them play Jinx in that state championship game. And Austin Box damn near, and that was a really good group of athletes at Enid at the time. They won the American Legion Baseball World Series that summer, but he almost willed them to a state championship.
Yeah.
And that was during the time when, if you were on the West Side, you even probably more so than ever, you had no chance to win the state championship, and they almost damn near pulled it off.
They might have been the closest that anybody's come, haven't they?
No, they got hammered pretty good in that game. Yeah, they got hammered pretty good in that state final. North had a great run in 2002 when they almost came back and beat that Pickrell, Jason Carter.
There's a phantom hold call in the fourth quarter, but we don't need to get into that.
We don't need to rehash.
This is supposed to be a positive podcast.
I believe the closest, though, was that Reggie Smith Santa Fe team. I'm pretty sure. Wasn't that 17-14 or something? It was real close.
Yeah, that would have been my senior year, I think. Because we got beat by Jinx in the semis, and they beat Union, I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's right. That Santa Fe team was really good. But no, with what was I going to say? With Box, and I think I've told this story on the pod. I don't know. There was talk after the Army game his senior year. He played in it, and he wasn't bad, but he didn't do a lot. And so I got some notice from our rivals guys hey, we're throwing around the idea of moving Austin Box out of the 100. And I was like, I think that's crazy, guys. I think that's wrong. Well, I just happened to be having a conversation with Alan Trimble at Jinx. And I said, what do you think about Austin Box? I love the guy, and he wasn't great in San Antonio. We've had some people kind of talking about maybe we've got him a little overrated. And he goes, Josh, that's one of the best high school football players I've ever played against. He thought Austin Box was incredible. And, for a guy like Trimble, who's sent multiple guys to the NFL, has played against great Union teams, all these things you can go through. For Alan Trimble to say that about a high school senior, that his team just got done beating the brakes off in a state championship game, I thought it was not only really classy, but really, and kind of told you where Austin Box was as a player.
And I want to say this would have probably been 12 years later when I went up there with you, Josh. And I remember you were kind of relaying that story to me, and Coach Trimble was standing there, and I think he even said at the time, and this would have been probably, I guess, 2000, I forget when it was, probably 2013 or 14 or 15.
Like that,
yeah. To that day, he even said that still held up. He was still one of the best players he had played against.
There are two things in 2008 that could have changed everything. One being DeMarco Murray got hurt in the Big 12 championship game, but the other was, remember, someone from OSU took a dive at Austin's knee at the end of that game and made it to where he was done, and they had to play the semi-pro.
The Ballaghan.
Yeah. Mike Ballaghan.
Ballaghan.
By the way, that before
you taking Mike Ballaghan right now, I bet.
Before Joe Mixon happened, Mike Ballaghan was the biggest controversy that I think I ever covered. It was just madness. It was insane.
What about Smoke Patterson?
Well, he never got to campus.
He never made it.
I see what you're saying. That actually got to Norman.
That became just a major media story frenzy.
That was a bowl game kind of thing.
Yeah, that was even before the bowl game, because But that was actually the next year, I think, in the fall.
Okay.
Because Balogun played in the championship. He was the start. I think he was the starting middle linebacker.
And, a lot of people kind of like, because of, like the semi-pro thing, and he was a dock worker and all that crap. Like, Balogun wasn't a bad player.
No.
Like, I mean, he wasn't great. He wasn't Reynolds. He wasn't Box. But he was okay. He was a decent player. Yeah. He's better than some they've thrown out, since him.
6 tackles and 1 tackle for loss in the national championship for Mike Balogun.
I bet that's better than Kenneth Murray's numbers against Georgia a couple of years ago. Probably better than Alabama this year. I don't remember Kenneth Murray making very many tackles against Alabama, except against Jalen Hurts.
Well, they're a power run team. Your Mike is not going to do much in that situation.
God,
I hate that. I hate bagging on him because he's such a good kid, man. But boy,
he's just got to play. I mean, come on, play, dude.
Two big SEC moments did not go well for him.
Okay, so we got a little off track, which is fine. We're still talking OU football. But yeah, I mean that, and I would say the other catastrophic, Austin died. I mean, there's no comparing lost careers, to somebody else, but. I would say, Josh, you would probably agree with me. One of the guys that had a real shot at a nice pro career that just got derailed was probably Adrian Taylor. When he broke his leg in that Sun Bowl, that was the most horrific thing I've ever seen.
Would you say that's the worst OU injury you've ever seen?
In person, yeah, no doubt.
That was horrible.
I still remember Gerald McCoy's reaction. I mean... And it was like what it must be like to see someone shot right in front of you. Because he was just screaming at the sideline.
And I can't remember did they initially think it was Beeler and it wasn't, or was that always Chase Beeler?
I think it was just a combo block that went bad.
Okay.
And it was something like Stanford was kind of known for that. It was like, and he got caught in a bad way, and that was just what they do. They finished him. But yeah, I mean, there was never really any just complete, dirty talk. There wasn't any kind of, they did anything dirty. It was just, I think everybody just thought that was so messed up, like you couldn't plan to do that to somebody.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, it's one of those things that's kind of sad because I think people, even now, guys in their early to mid-20s, they don't remember Adrian Taylor. He wasn't Gerald McCoy, but that guy would have had a 7 or 8 year NFL career.
He was Lynn Magruder. I mean,
yeah.
he was
with more body. I mean, like Adrian was
Remy
big.
Odelli. I mean, he was he was better than that.
He was of that caliber. Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, he might have been right there with Dusty if he had stayed healthy. I mean, he had tons of athletic ability. Probably, and he was that type of guy that he was big, but he wasn't carrying bad weight. So he could have got even bigger.
Little trivia for everybody there. He is from the same high school as one current Sooner starter.
Adrian Taylor was from, I want to say...
What high school is he from?
Leaf? Is he from Leaf?
He was Dallas area. Dallas Fort Worth. I can give it to you. Yeah. He was from Mansfield.
Oh, okay. Him and Kennedy Brooks share a high school, huh?
Yep.
Did not know that. The more you know.
Oh, he wasn't well known. He was one of those guys that emerged like spring back when this could happen. He wasn't really known until like the end of his junior season when people started going around for spring evaluations, and Tennessee, Texas, OU, everybody starts offering him like crazy. So, and because back in those days, Jackie Ship closed on guys.
You took the shot before I could.
Mm-hmm.
Where is he fighting people at now in the locker room? Did he have a new job now?
Yeah, he's at.
Is he at Nevada with Jay Norvell?
Is he with Norvell?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
I believe so. Because I think they hired him.
People in that locker
this was his first year, I think, or this is going to be his first year.
Yeah.
Like they hired him this spring.
He was at Arizona State, and it's like, we got the
Yeah.
ship.
And they're like, oh, God, this guy never recruits. He never leaves his house. What's going on?
Do you think Jay's upset? Like, because Jay can remember the good times. Do you remember when you landed McFarland? When are we going to do that again?
Well, Jackie, probably. Coach, I got to be honest. We're not going to do that at Nevada. That won't be happening.
Well, yeah, it's a perfect job. He doesn't. There's no expectations to land.
Sure.
Well, actually, you know what? Jamarcus McFarland probably would have been a better hire.
That you read my mind. I was like, I think I'd have went the other way with that connection. I'd have hired Jamarcus.
What's he at Abilene Christian or somewhere like that?
Is that no? It's Stephen F.
Stephen F. Austin.
Oh, Stephen F. Austin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Slowly making the way up.
Okay, so I mean, I'm sure some people listen to the pod. You know, they're not always subscribers to the site, but you guys did. It was Media Day on Monday, and you've kind of talked about guys that OU is in good position with. You had a great interview with Brock Vandagriff. It was almost 8 minutes long. You got one coming with his dad, but just kind of talking to guys on Media Day. Was there anything that really stood out to you just about kids or their personality or, and let me ask you this. You can talk about Zach Evans and the no-show there because that was something you talked about wanting to kind of get down, to the bottom of what was going on with him enlisting Oklahoma. But also, you mentioned that OU is out on guys. Is OU out completely on Kelee Ringo at this point? Is that the impression you got?
That was definitely the impression I got. It was one of those things where I talked to a few people and I was like, let's see if he even mentions OU. And he didn't. I mean, he probably did 8 interviews, and I think I talked to 6 of the guys that did it or did them, and no one, said he'd mentioned Oklahoma. So I just think, it's one of those deals where it's really tough to land a guy of that caliber when you have no track record of turning out NFL cornerbacks and you're not playing good defense. Now, if Ringo was there a year from now with the existing relationship he had with Grinch, maybe it's different. Maybe OU starts to turn that corner on defense and he says, man, they're going to play aggressive and they want to, leave their corners out on islands. I'll get to showcase my talent, and which is just unbelievable. Like I said, I think everybody freaked out about the 40 and then kind of missed. Like, Ringo was good, not great yesterday. I didn't see a guy that because when he ran that 40, if he goes out and just dominates in one-on-ones, dominates in 7-on-7, I think he would have had a very good chance to take over the number 1 spot. I think he could have done it, but I don't think he sees that like you hoped he would. Now I will say, to kind of get back to what you actually, what you were really talking about, Carey. It wasn't a guy on Media Day that I really got a renewed perspective on, but it was the last guy we talked to, Jacobe Covington, and we did an interview kind of during a break yesterday, and I thought OU might really have been slipping with him, but he was very clear. I didn't leave him a lot of wiggle room. And he didn't mind. Like, he walked right into it. No, I still like Oklahoma a lot. They're one of my absolute top teams. I'm going to try to get out there for a game. He admitted, he literally said it himself. I thought I was going to commit, or I was about to commit, or something along those lines right after his official visit. And he said, I talked to my coach and I talked to my mom, and they wanted me just to see a few more things. And since then, he went and visited Washington. He says he wants to take 2 more trips. Didn't really know who they're going to be. So to me, when you start adding that stuff up, you're like, okay, OU just needs to be patient with him, keep working him. And Washington's going to be interesting. He clearly liked it up there, but I think if he was picking right now, he'd pick Oklahoma.
Okay, let's just get to the big news that's out this week. The board is ready to have a mini meltdown.
How good Brock Vandagriff was? Yeah, we can talk some more.
No, I do wonder if we're going to get a what do they call those? Golly,
homicide?
Not a cease and desist.
Homicide?
No,
death threat?
Restraining order?
A restraining order by the Vandagriff family at some point, because we're reaching Justice Hansen territory with the stories and the pictures. Literally leading up to 5-star, every single story except for one was Brock Vandagriff.
Kid is from Georgia, is not started his junior year of high school, and we've seen him 3 times already.
We're we're not ahead of the Justice Hansen because we were seeing him when he was a sophomore.
Yeah.
I mean,
as
game
a freshman.
action.
Yeah, as a freshman.
Eddie and him kept ordering milkshakes and using the same straw. It was weird. It got uncomfortable.
Yeah, even more so now.
But another guy that you've been tracking since he was a very young guy, Andrew Raym, there's all this smoke out there now that Georgia is taking the lead from Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this in the pod. I haven't put it on the board yet, but
You got time.
I know it'll be up before anybody hears on the pod. So everybody just calm down.
You saying my work ethic is shit? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying you got enough time, unless it's like an hour-long dissertation here.
God, it almost feels like it needs to be, but I'm not going to do that to myself. I spoke to a source last night that thought if there was a third team, it would be Oklahoma. They think Georgia and Michigan have kind of gotten out in front. Now, that's one source, and I talk to others that tell me it's OU and Georgia. So what I've always gone with on things like this is when you talk to enough people and there's one school that's in everybody's mind, that usually tells you something. Like if we're doing this podcast and all of a sudden we had to stop because Andrew Raym tweets out an announcement, I think he'd pick Georgia right this minute. I really do. I think Michigan's involved. I do. I didn't think that 24 hours ago, but just talking to enough people, like they made an impression. They did. I've been in contact with Andrew. I've been in contact with people around Broken Arrow. I've talked to various sources. I think this is surprising everyone. There's only so much I can go into at this point, but there were very, very clear reasons for Oklahoma to think they were in a good spot. There was a lot of communication between him and Bedenbaugh and Lincoln Riley, and even Andrew's father has been involved in a lot of this. So I still and I know people say, well, he's gone. Josh said he'd go to Georgia if he picked right now. He's clearly torn. Like there is, like I said, talking to the kid enough, he's stressed right now. There's a lot on his plate. He's got all 3 schools coming at him really hard. They all know he's ready to make a decision, and it may feel like whoever gets the last word is going to win. Now, some people have asked me about Oklahoma and an official visit, if that could happen. I think it could, but obviously it can't happen until the season, and I think he wants to make an announcement before then. Now, if he were to randomly show up on campus, that wouldn't stun me. We'll have to see what happens. The best news for Oklahoma, Georgia and Michigan have fired their shots. It's if Oklahoma can withstand this and maybe he doesn't commit for a week or two, I think that's great for Oklahoma. The longer he goes without announcing right now, I think the better it is for Oklahoma.
Well, and this is something that's just kind of because he was just at Oklahoma, like 3 weeks ago?
Oh, he was there a week ago.
Was it that
today?
It was a week
Tomorrow?
ago, but he would never publicize that he's going back to Norman. He'd never put the Twitter pictures of wearing the jersey and things like that. Because he's made so many, I guess, quote-unquote, secret trips to Norman. But it's when he's gone to these other schools, that's when we see the usual social media, hey, I'm here, here's what I'm wearing, and all that stuff.
Absolutely right.
It's almost unfair to, I don't even know if it's fair to even ask this right now, Josh, and certainly tell me if it's not, but I think the general reaction to that would be, how could that have happened that Oklahoma would lose an in-state guy, and what does that mean that if they were to lose him, and I mean, you're kind of looking at a third straight year that you're letting arguably the best player in the state out.
Yeah,
maybe more big picture than just projecting onto Raym.
It's hard to justify it away because, like Josh talked about earlier in the pod, the offensive line position at Oklahoma
strong as any
the perception
position
of that nationally is
True.
that is as much of a destination as anywhere in the country right
Absolutely.
now.
Well, you look at the rivals rankings. If you're going to say Aaron Parks and/or Anton Harrison is a backup option to Andrew Raym possibly going somewhere else, they're both ranked more highly than he is in the Rivals rankings. Like, now, I don't agree with those rankings. I think Andrew Raym would have kicked ass and taken names at the Rivals 5-star yesterday, but he didn't come to camp, so he didn't get to go to something like that. That's fine. I've got no problem with that. I just think he's undervalued nationally. That being said, instantly when these kind of things happen, people go and look for, well, what went wrong? Why is this happened? Guys, how could you blame, like, Bill Bedenbaugh, clearly a very good recruiter, clearly, I mean, just won the award, for having the best offensive line in the country, has taken this offensive line from a laughingstock to one of the best units year in and year out in the country, and just keeps recruiting big-time guys from all over I'm saying country a lot.
You could probably count his losses in recruiting on one hand right now over the last 3 years.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an in-state kid that grew up an OU fan. Like, everything is tailor-made for this to work. Like, I can tell you that some Tulsa people that at times have been a little negative towards OU recruiting, they all want him to go to Oklahoma because they know, they're like, Bill's the best in the business. Like, that's the guy we want him to go play with. And these are guys that are not rah-rah OU recruiting all the time. But, I mean, that's how respected he is. Even people that maybe have a little beef with Oklahoma, they don't have beef with Bill because he's present, he's there, he does everything he needs to do. If he goes to Georgia or Michigan, he just went to Georgia or Michigan. Like, it's not for lack of effort, or I can tell you yesterday Lincoln Riley was in contact with Raym's dad. I mean, having conversations about, whatever. I'm not going to say I know all the ins and outs of that conversation, but OU is firing every bullet they have.
And, I'm a big timeline guy. You look, this isn't like OU came in late. Sooners were the first offer. He was the initial commitment for the 2020 class. They didn't get mad when he decided to back out. No sub tweets or anything like that. No burning the bridges with Bedenbaugh or Riley or Cale Gundy or anything. They've handled this correctly. And it is weird because it's what I've talked to Lincoln about the last 2 springs is when you load up for the spring game, you take your best shot there with some of these out of region kids. Do you worry it won't pay off when November, December come around? And it's the exact reason why maybe OU still has a chance, even if it doesn't work out. Because, like you said, those other schools have taken their best shot. He's not going to go back to Athens or Ann Arbor, especially with Broken Arrow, primed to make another run at least toward winning another state championship. They'll definitely be in the hunt for it. So he's not going to be leaving Broken Arrow a lot during this season. So maybe just the fact that OU still got one last major shot that it can take might end up being the difference, where maybe like something like Chris Steele and some other guys that's actually hurt, where they already made their best play and all they could do was wait.
Is there a date for the barbecue yet?
It's got to be the last weekend July. I mean, just be based on the recruiting calendar. There's no other time you can do it because then you start going in high school practices start up and all that other stuff. So
it would have to be the 27th.
The last Saturday, since they moved it from Friday to Saturday the last couple of years.
27th of July.
I mean, if he wants to get it over, I think your best chance might be to try get him postpone it, get him here for the barbecue, and then try and close the deal there.
Which I think he was at last year. I'm trying to remember, Josh. I think he was there even though he'd already decommitted and things like that. I still think he was at the barbecue.
I can't remember. He was there sometime right around it. Like, I know because it was like either the barbecue or a visit for like a fall practice was like his first trip to Norman since the decommitment. Like, I remember that kind of being a story, but I can't remember if it was for the barbecue or just right around it.
Well, that's good stuff. It's going to make everybody mad if you don't get it up before the pod comes out.
Now, I guess we got to talk about the eyes.
Yeah, I mean, that goes right into the eyes, and what we talked about right before we started with the way that Annie Hansen phrased her quote tweet of Lincoln about, like, coming back to Oklahoma or something of that nature. Definitely have a lot of people.
Darian Green Warren back?
A lot of people speculating about, like, does that mean it's an in-state kid? Is that aimed toward Raym? Things like that. But yeah, the eyes came out once again. It does feel, and she even confirms it. She doesn't even realize, but she's confirming it's the 2020 class by doing that. I admit I don't know at this point who it is. We have pretty good leads on who we think it is, but as we record this at this moment, don't know exactly who it could be. But yeah, that would mean there's 4 out there, and when you're in this downtime, dead period, you want to keep your brand out there. That's going to be the way to do it. Just maybe have one next couple weeks and just keep that ball rolling. Let people know Sooners are still out there, and then barbecue comes around, and you strike again. Always keep that brand.
The one thing about Lincoln is, Bob, we've kind of learned this. Like, he doesn't like being, like, he doesn't like going into a shell. Like he had a media thing last month just to have a media thing because it had been a while since we talked, and now it's going to be, Big 12 Media Days is coming up, so maybe he doesn't feel the pressure to do anything right now, but he likes to keep his program front and center in the spotlight, in the news, on your mind.
It's got to be. That's one huge change that he has made. Is always, whether it was the
remaining visible,
the Jordan brand, or whatever he can do to make sure the OU name gets out there on a national stage, not only for just for people to be talking Sooners in terms of national media, for recruits to constantly see the crimson and cream. I mean, that's obviously been a big time goal for him.
I mean, he liked one of our posts the other day or yesterday from the 5-star, which he rarely does that stuff. So, I mean, it's obvious he probably enjoys the fact that Brock Vandagriff has been getting so much pub, and Oklahoma conversely.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Now I will say the advantage of us being able to literally own. We don't know who those eyes are right yet. We haven't sorted out. We will get it figured out, but we don't know at this moment. We can make a guess because we're not. There's no betrayal there. It's just pure speculation. I think Bob and I are about on the same page on this. If I was going to lay a guess on the eyes right now, I think Jalen Conyers is a pretty
the tight end.
Yeah, tight end from Groover, Texas. I think that's a pretty good place to start.
Just came off his official visit to the Buckeyes while he was at OU the week before. So it feels like he made all his visits. He's seen what he needs to see. Because, I mean, that's what this month is starting to become. All these kids want to make their visits in May and June, and then commitment bonanza in July because they're all done with it.
Okay, here you want my guess?
Yeah, let's hear it.
This is based on this is the only thing that feels like it can. I don't know if there's any Conyers connection to Oklahoma, but I do know there's another tight end out there that had an Oklahoma connection. What if this is a flip of Drew Sanders?
That is, I mean, that's a prediction.
That's something you need to forecast that one.
That's more like pulling something out of my ass.
Yeah, forecast that.
If you predict that, we need to head straight to 7-Eleven on the corner to grab some lottery tickets for tonight.
And
hell with that. On Vegas.
If that
7-Eleven doesn't sell them.
If that were the case, and all Lincoln did was just normal eyes, like no.
Oh, he would have to dig it in.
There were no other words, just normal eyes, and it was Drew Sanders. That would be a story.
He'd need to have the eyes like elephants, just like hundreds of elephants.
I don't know what would be the Mike Stoops emoji. Just explosions and fires and bombs.
He could use the GIF that I have of Mike trying to call the timeout from the press box.
Oh my God.
That's like one of my favorite GIFs in the world. Like he's like screaming it, and you can tell he's trying to get it. And I'm like, Mike, you're 100 yards above the field, dude. Nobody can see you.
If I was Mike Stoops, I'd just retweet Ruffin McNeil River Rat stuff if that happened.
That'd be amazing.
Hey, I'm not closing the door that Mike Stoops is just going to be the inside mole in Tuscaloosa.
He's blowing it up.
Blow that thing up from the inside out.
Redeem
himself. That's his redeeming quality to Oklahoma fans.
He's a mole. He's a spy.
He's been sent down there. This is a big orchestrated plan.
1 year with the Tide, he blows it all up, and then he never goes back into coaching.
Maybe that's why Bob left to take the NFL job. Like he knew that this is a long
This
con.
has been spewing for a long time.
Yeah, and then Bob will get back into college football coaching once it's been cleaned up. And then Venables will come and say, "Aha! Clemson's cheating too, and I have proof."
Oh, wow.
Oh, you went another
this is
direction.
The longest of long calls.
Long call.
I don't know if Dabo would let that happen. I think he's too calculated.
I think Dabo would
Brent's body
hit,
would disappear.
The hit would come for Brent.
Dabo, I agree entirely with Eddie that I think there is a chance there are some underworld mafia connections to Dabo. Like, I think he's hidden them really well, but I could see that connection made for sure.
Just last month he was comparing himself to Osama bin Laden, so, there's definitely something weird going on.
La Cosa Nostra.
Yeah, there's one thing that football coaches, their shelf life is expiring.
They're just all crazy.
I can go more with that. They're more.
They are all insane. Like, they're just crazy. I mean, there's going to have to be this wave of Lincoln Rileys to come around eventually.
Well,
but you're gonna have the Gary Pattersons out there forever.
Think about this Andrew Raym situation. If you were a Bill Bedenbaugh, wouldn't you be a little nuts? Like, look at what I've done. I'm in your home state. We play in the playoffs every year. We've got an offense that sends guys to the NFL.
We have first rounders almost every year.
We were your first offer. We've recruited you hard forever. We took it on the chin when you decommitted. We've told you it's cool if you take. I mean, at every turn, OU has allowed for Andrew Raym, and then and everything about OU seems to make sense for Andrew Raym, and he may go elsewhere. Yeah. Like, that made me crazy too.
Well, it's kind of what I told you, I think, yesterday during the camp, was just the fact that it almost seems like it's a growing situation that he's looking for every opportunity not to go to OU. And sometimes that's the way it happens. And I think that obviously it's going to be a tough pill to swallow if that's what happens for Oklahoma and for Oklahoma fans. But, I mean, it kind of is what it is. I would almost think that you're calling Creed and saying, hey, call your buddy, call your offensive line brethren from the state of Oklahoma.
Get Creed, get Bray.
Hell, get Brock Vandagriff. I mean, we saw that little exchange when he asked him to follow him back, and I mean, it's turning into a drama. It's funny that these kids almost want to avoid the drama, so they create a bunch more drama, if that makes sense.
I think the main thing is kids don't understand how all this works. So
everything that they do is multiplied by a billion these days. So
I don't want to get, like I said, I want to be real careful of what I say of what Andrew said, and I should also own that if I would have been a recruit as a high school guy, I would have been a very similar storyline to what I just said of Andrew Raym. Grew up an OU fan, blah blah blah. All I wanted to do was leave the state. That's all I wanted to do. So like that's no indictment on him. That's just, when things logically should make sense, sometimes they don't. That'll drive you nuts, especially in recruiting when it's so important to do well in your own state. But I do want to say, talking to him over the last few days, you can tell, like, it's a total culture shock for him that everybody's paying attention to what he's doing. Like, he hasn't adjusted to that's part of his life yet. Like, and I get it. All these kids, they come to that point where they're like, wow, every time I go somewhere or do something or say anything, it comes back to me. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And it's a learning process for all these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, these guys are so coached up when they get to college. It's because they don't know that stuff. But I don't know. I think kids are more, when we talk to them now, I think they're more guarded just on a personal level than they've ever been. But they still, what's weird is kids are kind of almost more trusting than they used to be, and they shouldn't be.
I think because they're so used to sharing everything socially. Yeah. Like, tell everybody they may not tell you what girl they're talking about, but everybody knows they're talking about some girl that dumped them or they like or whatever it may be. So with us, they're like, well, yeah, whatever. What, you want to talk about my colleges? Yeah, I like that school a lot. So you're right. Like, it's harder to feel like you know them, but they're still more willing to share aspects of things.
How was the by the way, we should say big thanks to Rivals and John Tallman and everybody. It was just, they treated us fantastic. I don't know why, but we got put up in the we can say where it was now because nobody can call the rooms. The Ritz-Carlton, which I had never stayed in a place that swanky before. Did you go down and get like the breakfast in the morning, Eddie?
Mm-mm.
You just got room service?
No, I never did.
Shit, what was that charge for then?
I got a couple of room services.
Okay. That makes sense.
I got breakfast each morning.
Yeah, see, we just killed Josh.
Killed him because he charged the room service.
No, I never went down there.
It was good, man.
Slept in a little bit. That's kind of nice.
Play. Yeah, Josh.
I kept texting Eddie like, "You up?"
Oh, I was up. I just had gone back to sleep.
Any hangovers?
No, not too bad.
Good.
Got there too late on Sunday to really
Atlanta
tie one on.
Yep.
It does appear that Josh is flaking out on us a little bit, so I think maybe we're just about done here. But yeah, no, I mean, Josh, any kind of last words? You look good now. Any last words about Atlanta that you or Eddie even that you really hadn't gotten off your chest or talked too much about?
I don't think that.
Well, I mean,
go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say the city of Atlanta closes its bars entirely too early. That's a problem.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. As far a big city like that.
Yeah, like almost everything was closed at midnight. It was wild. But I will say, as far as the recruiting side of things, just talking to a lot of people, I think when you talk to I talked to Sam Spiegelman, I talked to Josh Himmel, talked to guys, like Adam Friedman in the Mid-Atlantic, Chad Simmons, Rob Cassidy, guys that are in areas that Oklahoma recruits frequently. I know sometimes OU fans, I think they were starting to feel like it was about to be good, and now with the Andrew Raym thing, they're all kind of shaken up again. There are good days ahead. Like when I talk to these guys that talk to all these recruits from these regions, Oklahoma has a lot of positive buzz right now. Like sometimes it takes more time, sometimes it doesn't go OU's way, but more than any time in years past, OU consistently is a contender with big time guys all over the country. So like just be patient with these things. Like if Andrew Raym does pick Georgia, does pick Michigan, it doesn't mean this class is falling apart. It doesn't mean anything like that. Like he just went somewhere else. If there's any position where I don't think you have to worry about OU continuing to field good players, it's the offensive line. They're going to be fine. It stinks to lose Raym if that's what happens, but it's survivable.
Yeah, I'd kind of just echo that, saying that, I remember going to Atlanta for the first time, and we would talk to some of those national guys, and they talked about Oklahoma, but it wasn't a tone of I'm taking them seriously. It was more of it's Oklahoma. I mean, they're known for playing really good football, and maybe I'd like to be a part of that. But nowadays, you talk to guys, whether it be Jacobe Covington or getting the number one a commitment from the number one player in the 2021 class. It just has a different vibe. You can take it more seriously, and that's probably a credit to basically what Lincoln Riley's built over the last couple years and the national. I guess the face of what they are nationally. I think that there's a lot more people that, from a national perspective, appreciate what Lincoln Riley is trying to build at Oklahoma. So I think that it's a complete 180 from what we saw, in those first couple years in Atlanta or Chicago even, and that was with Joe Mixon and that group. So it's they're a national player in the recruiting scene. Are they where Georgia and Alabama are right now? Probably not, but they're certainly trying to knock on that door, and they're closer than ever.
And I think the one thing, guys, that you have to look at is, you start in the Rivals 5-star era, 2012. You had Stan Von Taylor and DJ Ward that were there, but they weren't high, guys that were really in consideration for 5-star status. You end up getting Atari Bird and LJ Moore, who don't pan out. But that was an era that OU was really trying to figure out. Like, they were falling behind. Their coaches were getting older. They were, out of touch. Like, that was when Stoops would refuse to even do Twitter in those days. Like, there's this really cavernous divide that they've bridged over the last, I'd say, 3 years that has them at the not just catching up to everyone, but at the forefront in a lot of areas that Lincoln Riley has done, and the support staff has to get a lot of credit there, and Drew Hill and those guys. But this is also a group of kids that has basically grown up seeing OU play in the college football playoff 3 out of 4 years. So there's a a perception, a cachet, whatever you want to call it, of the OU football program that hasn't been there. And you got to give Lincoln Riley and his staff a lot of credit because they're in position to capitalize in that, like they weren't before he took over as head coach. So that's
there's no doubt about that. I mean,
I've left you speechless.
No,
we're good.
It's a good place to end it. I think that there are, as long as it's been never more apparent, as long as Lincoln Riley's around, I think that everything is headed in the right direction, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. That's not news to anybody, but
yeah, it was kind of weird
it's
not
even
following
more,
a lot of offensive skill players at the 5-star this year.
It's insane. It's like it was really crazy, especially when they have a quarterback there. So we shall see.
And by the way, I was thinking about this too while you were talking about that. Like everybody looks at compares this year to last year. Like Jaden Hazelwood came so late and Buki came so late. Like those 5-stars came in at the end, which never happens at Oklahoma. And then Trajan Bridges became a 5-star. I mean, he was long committed, but not really considered that. Basically, Theo Wiesen, you had R.J. Henderson.
And Rattler.
And then you had Rattler. But, all those guys, it doesn't have the star power yet, but it's still a damn good haul that's going to end up being pulled in here. And then we'll see. As long as they hold on to the defensive guys, they're getting better on the defensive end. And then 2021, now you have that same formula that you had 2 years ago. You got your quarterback. Now you can start going after the receivers and the running backs and all that and the offensive linemen. Even though I know, Josh, you talked to Vandagriff, and he said he's not really a rah-rah guy like that. But Lincoln Riley will certainly find ways to sell that to kids.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, Vandagriff said in that interview, Lincoln sent me a list of guys they want me to talk to. So, it's not natural to him. It's not he's not overly effusive or a guy that's real active on social media. But I'll be shocked if because he's a smart kid. He knows that if he wants to win all the stuff he wants to win, you got to have the talent around you, and he's the kind of guy that carries enough weight to help with those kind of things.
Well, it also helps if you get a couple of running backs and some receivers that are have those type of personalities, and then that can kind of carry you as a group to go after other people.
Oh yeah, I mean, an OU has already offered a friend of his that we mentioned in the scoop last week. Believe it's Michael Nixon. I'm going to say that wrong. So, but yeah, I mean, so. There are guys he's connected to, and as he goes around, like I said, and more people know who he is, what he did yesterday is only going to help that as more guys kind of take notice of him and think, well, yeah, I could go play with that dude. He's, winning games and delivering strikes all over the field.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast. Thanks to Josh and Eddie for all your traveling, all your hard work. I don't know, thanks to myself for, one day of travel. Woo.
It paid off when I was walking home from the restaurant last night and I saw a child smoking a cigarette in Atlanta.
I saw that.
It was a legitimate child.
How young?
I swear to God, this child was no more than 13 years old. And he was with his mom. Like they were sharing a cigarette. And it wasn't like a small person or this was
Wouldn't
a child.
See that happening in San
This was
Francisco.
a child. No, they'd be shooting heroin together.
And on that note.
So I've been really shook by that.
As I said, I've been propositioned by a elderly hooker on the streets of Alabama before.
Alabama?
Or
Atlanta?
Arkansas.
Arkansas?
No, Georgia.
Jesus.
Atlanta.
Whoa.
Starts with an A.
I'm thinking of
It starts with an
everything
A.
else besides Atlanta. Yeah.
It starts with an A.
Think of all the hick redneck places where granny hookers live. I'm sure.
A-Town. Ludacris had a bunch to say about that place, didn't he?
Those are his peoples. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you guys again next week. Back here for another edition of the Unofficial 40 on Soonerscoop.com podcasts.